Welcome back, and thank you for joining Paige and I today on the Cinema Club podcast. So happy to be back with Paige covering The Last of Us season two. This time around, years later, Paige and I have definitely stayed in contact over the last few years on updates regarding The Last of Us. And I'm so happy to be talking with you about this amazing show again, Paige.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this again. As diehard fans as we are, I think we can dive right in and we construct season two.
Yes, absolutely. I was telling Paige shortly before we jumped in here that I did a rewatch of season one, leading right up to the premiere of season two. And I think gave me a deeper appreciation for, again, just how well they've stuck the landing when it comes to introducing us to the second game. I'm already wanting to jump back into the games again after just watching the season premiere of season two.
Yeah, I actually replayed the first game. Didn't get to replay the second game, but I don't think that'll last very long because I'll probably have to play it again. But even though we got those really nice controllers now, you have to play with the controller in the game, be immersed.
Absolutely. Gotta hop into it. Let's just jump into it then. The opening shot, I really appreciated, especially rewatching and replaying one and season one. How that story ends is Ellie saying, okay, I'm accepting what Joel shared and the story there. But I really liked that season two, we get a different shot, we get a different perspective on that exact same scene, and something that we didn't get in the games. We get to see Joel's reaction to Ellie in that moment.
That is a very good point. You just covered something that I didn't even think about. I was too focused on what was going to happen next after that scene because I was excited to just go in. But I like how they ended season one and just slowly went into season two like that. It was great.
Yeah, because I was listening to the official podcast that accompanies the show, and they were talking about how there was a lot of discussion on how to end season one of The Last of Us. Should they differentiate from the ending of the first game? If so, how? And I think as you and I spoke about previously, they ended it exactly how the first game ends, but they were talking about how they shot a lot of alternative cuts and angles and whatnot. And so they actually utilized one of those here to, again, like you said, just really smoothly transition from season one to season two, but also give us that little glimpse of Joel's reaction to what Ellie says there at the very end, which I, again, appreciated because we didn't get that in the first game or the second game. So we see Joel's reaction, see Joel make a decision to stick with what he just said to Ellie, even though he can read that she isn't buying into his lie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She just said everything.
Sorry.
You're good. No, it was perfect.
Awesome. Yeah. That really stood out to me. That was a nice change from the games, at least in my opinion. But speaking of change, then we go into um, a very different opening from the second game. We were still 5 years in the past with the giraffes, so we know that this is taking place at the same time that the season finale of season one ends. But you take it away. I want to hear what your thoughts are here when it comes to that whole opening scene.
I heard a lot of controversy saying that they didn't follow the games with this opening scene. It is not the games. They're doing their best to portray like a story.
Yeah.
But I liked how they did Abby right away, just to show that this is going to be a main character. She's going to be important. You just have to wait and see what's going to happen with her, is how I felt it. Even though I played the games, I still enjoyed seeing her first. it proved that they were still people. And to be honest, Joel messed up. They're angry. You see the graves in front of them. And we all know that Abby's looking for him. You get that at the end of first episode as well. It was going to take a hot minute for me to like Caitlin Dever to be Abby, but I think she will do pretty good. They did not make her a buff, just beefcake, even though we would like to see a beefcake Abby in the seasons. So we get more emotion. What did you think about having her be the first shot instead of Ellie and Joel? Even though they're like
Yeah,
pictures of the game.
I immediately was like, whoa, okay, we're going in a different direction right off the bat here. Is it going to land? I was questioning it. And then I feel Caitlin Dever honestly sold me immediately in the first, whatever, 3 minutes of screen time that they have there when she says, slowly, we will kill him. We will kill him slowly. And it was interesting. I was looking into this a little bit. So originally, when they were developing The Last of Us from the game, it was going to be a movie. They had actually eyed Caitlin for the role of Ellie at that time. And obviously, she aged out of that role. But the creators really loved her. And so they were very happy to be able to have her come in and play a very different character. And I know you touched on the physicality aspect of this character. In the game, I feel like this is where mediums, video game, TV, it's okay to make changes sometimes. And I guess like how I'm viewing it is that the show doesn't have to translate the games on a one-on-one basis. It's a different medium. And another aspect of it, I think, too, for me at least, is when I look at the experience of gaming or the experience of watching television, it's very different, right? So, in games, when you're playing like Ellie or Joel or Abby, they'll have very different play styles in the game. And that's a great aspect though, because you get to try different things or you have to strategize differently as you're playing these characters. When it comes to TV, we don't have to change anything up in that regard. And like you kind of mentioned, I know some people are having some issue with this version of Abby not being super bulked up. And again, for me, it's something that I was curious about how I was going to feel about it. But well, as long as you got like somebody who's like acting their ass off in there, which she is, like that aspect, I don't think for me personally is as of high importance in a TV medium, at least.
Yeah, I'm 100% agree with you. There's only so much you can do when you're trying to redo it via TV show or movie. And they will portray her, not their physicality of her body shape and everything, but I think she can do the aggression, the revenge, the sadness as you do feel for Abby in the game. I mean, in the game as well, you meet Abby so not late. You get to play her later in the game, but you meet her at a very weird point. And so you meet a main character right away. This is who this is. Boom. You have more background information.
It's more set up for our protagonist, which I think, again, is working for me, at least so far here. Also, I don't know if you had this experience. When I was watching the opening scene here with these other characters with Abby, I was able to pick out immediately the names for each character that was there.
I know the male that she's talking to is Owen.
Yes. So the actress, her name is, hopefully I'm not butchering this, Tati Gabrielle. And they have been in a few projects that I have seen them in previously. But I was like watching this opening scene, I'm like, man, they look so familiar. Like I've seen them in something really recently. And then I realized that she is the main character in the upcoming Naughty Dog video game. She plays
Oh,
uh, the main character in, I think the video game's called Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet.
yep. And those are
And I
the,
was like, oh,
is it Greg Mazin and them creating it again? Right?
yes. Yep. Naughty Dog Studios. I was like their next upcoming big game, which they showed a sneak peek of either early this year or late last year.
Yes.
Um,
Snippets on it. And I was like, I'm not much of a space gal, but we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah, very different, especially for, I feel like Naughty Dog Studios, because they usually have a main character and a companion, but seemingly this is going to be a solo adventure, which I think will be interesting. Um, but yeah, anyway, I feel like they're doing a nice job of transferring from one medium to another when it comes to the characters that you and I have grown to love, to hate, to have mixed feelings about.
Thank you.
And I'm definitely interested to see this group now 5 years later, see how they're handling and going through this process of grief. Obviously, Abby is very much heading this expedition to find Joel. But again, I feel like that was a great opening to set up our protagonist with a little bit more of an understanding of maybe where they're coming from than we get in the second video game.
Usually the expositions, or even like the pilot, is always the most important because it really makes the path of how the show is going to be. But I think we covered a good portion of the opening scene.
Yeah.
We're pretty strong on Abby's character.
And then we immediately jump into our update on Ellie. Ellie is learning jujitsu.
Good at it, as I could see too.
Yeah, and I like that they are emphasizing that even though she is a smaller build of a character, even in this retelling of the story, that she is having that desire and the ability to take down larger opponents as well.
Absolutely. Because I feel like that's going to be very crucial in her adventures coming up.
Yeah.
And I know in the games, Ellie really kind of bulked up a little bit too. So it's a good way to show that in the show, it's also happening, even if it's a technical style, not just like physical too. So,
I was going to say fast forwarding a little bit, but in the New Year's party, she got the sleeves rolled up. I was like, okay, she's been working out those arms a little bit, I think.
forearm, like you can see the curvature to the muscles.
Yes, definitely. I was also kind of reflecting a little bit on this too. We talked a lot about her relationship with violence in our breakdown of season one, and how, unlike Joel, who uses violence as a tool, but just likes violence as a whole, Ellie finds a thrill. And I think, especially, we're seeing in season two, she's finding a purpose in violence. She's seeking it out. My interpretation is that it potentially is because it gives her a sense of control over her life.
I totally agree. She has control over her life now. She can pick and choose what she wants to do. She's old enough. Because
Yeah.
first season, she followed Joel around and he was telling her what she can and cannot do. And like any teenager, you're going to have these spurts of wanting to explore yourself. And that goes to more things about her personality too. She's exploring new things. She's growing up just a little bit, trying to find the right path for herself.
Yes. Still very much a teenager. I think she's like 19 in this. She has some immaturity in a lot of areas. But in a lot of ways too, like, she is handling a lot of things that a teenager would, I think, as well.
Just different scenarios.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is that 5 years later, they've been in Jackson this entire time, which is shown to be a safe community, but might be getting complacent a little bit too.
He's so used to running and not, I don't want to say was an orphan, but being alone He's probably getting that itch to go on more adventures.
I think part of it too is that due to being in a safe environment, Joel and Ellie's relationship hasn't had to be so reliant on one another. And I think that's partially why things have been able to escalate into the place that they are in their relationship when we are reintroduced to them 5 years later here as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Which I really enjoyed our first glimpse into what has Joel been doing the last 5 years.
He looks like he's settling down. He got some glasses. He's working on his little hobby of fixing things. I thought that was an interesting take. I know in the games he's similar in that aspect, but it feels like in the show he wants to just be a dad. He wants to raise this girl. You can see that in the game, but you can see that Daddy Pascal wants to be a father.
Yes. He's a good dad, honestly. It's something that he acknowledges himself. Like he never got this age with his biological daughter. It is new territory for him. But I really liked our introduction to Dina as well. It's a very conscientious misdirect right away because we see Joel. He says, "Hey, kiddo," and we would expect to see Ellie there, but it's actually Dina. And I instantly fell in love with Dina. This casting for me is, dare I say, better. They outdid the game version, which is saying something.
I think her character was, I don't want to be mean to the character who played Dina. I felt like the personality wasn't quite hitting it for me. The character in the show, she was just like full of life, just happy, ready, eager, just wanted to be a normal teenage girl. And I really did like who they casted for that. I don't think it's like a perfect representation of the game, Dina. I think her character does a really good job for what they needed for the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. And again, I think for me, this version of Dina is building off of the game version. Like you're hinting, I think she represents more of a healthier, more open-hearted way to live. It's just more of that ray of sunshine, gets along, loves everyone, everyone loves Dina. In contrast to more of the closed off bond that Ellie and Joel have shared.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like she balances Joel and Ellie out.
I think they're the relationship that we saw them have in the show when they go off on the scouting route that they're doing.
Yeah.
You could definitely tell that Dina is the brains of the operation and Ellie is just the bronze, just wants to go and kill, and she has strategy. And I think it's a perfect little duo. And you can see the chemistry between them, relationship wise, and also just like for the show in general.
Oh, 100%. It was something I believe you and I talked about when we met and talked about the trailer, like how important it was going to be for that Dina and Ellie relationship to really come across right away for the audience. And I think that they really did a nice job with that in the show. They really took their time a little bit more introducing Dina. She just wasn't instantly Ellie's love interest right off the bat. And I think that was a good decision, honestly.
Yeah, we'll be able to watch their relationship grow as the season goes on. Just like you said, in the game, they just kind of threw her at her and was like, these two are together. We're like, all right, sounds good.
I think it's different mediums, right? They just require different aspects, different things. And of course, I really liked too that we still got the sharpshooting lessons with Tommy that are in the game. We still got those incorporated here in episode 1, which is really fun to see. Ellie's learning those different skills that are going to come in handy surviving in the world that she's living in now.
In a world that's getting outrun.
What do you think of Jesse? I know we didn't get a whole lot of screen time with Jesse. I thought it was great.
I think they portrayed his character from the game like spot on. And I know we were talking about looks and everything about the other two. It looks like they copied and pasted him into the show, and I'm like, that's perfect. He has a really good personality. I think they casted him really well. Even if he's the small part in the episode we watched, you could gather the importance of him.
Absolutely. And I think too, just the importance that maybe he is to the community as a whole in Jackson. I could definitely see him maybe being eyed for potential future leadership on the council or something, just because he's around the same age as Dina and Ellie, and he's also responsible what's going on in and around Jackson as well.
I'm trying to think of where we're at in the show when we're talking.
Oh, I was going to say we could jump into the horseback riding and the supermarket.
So I gotta say, the supermarket portion had to be my favorite part of the
Okay.
episode we watched, just for the fact of I really enjoy how they incorporate the infected, the runners, the clickers, and then they threw the little stalker at us right away, which we don't see until later in the video games.
Very true.
I got the heebie-jeebies with the little cordyceps crown just crawling and just making that weird breathing noise. I'm like, okay, they're going to do a really good job at this special effects for the show.
Yeah. And I think, at least to me, it always starts with really good practical effects and then mixing in more of the CGI elements, a little scampering, and then, of course, the cordyceps and the little moaning sounds. I was like, oh, this is creepy, dude.
Yeah. But as we were talking about Ellie previously, her wanting to be so eager made her get in this situation, which was also a pro and con because she got to see these very smart infected crawl around, and she could obviously tell the console later. I enjoyed that she got bit again. And when they did the close up, when the bite works and you see the little cordyceps worm,
Yeah.
that was different. That made it a little more real.
No, definitely. Differentiates, I would say, but in a really good way. A whole like hippie factor going on there.
Right.
Did want to kind of circle back a little bit because I was going to ask you, and I didn't get a chance to rewatch episode 1. But when they're actually, before they get to the supermarket, they're on patrol, and Dina and Ellie are having a conversation on horseback. And Dina mentions that Ellie has dated seemingly the only other lesbian in Jackson. I wasn't sure if she was referring to the person that was leading the outing or if it was somebody else in Jackson.
It was the other girl on the horseback.
Okay.
I think they had a shot of her and then they said that and then they went back. That, and I thought that was, I don't know, a teasing moment of them two. Yeah.
Yeah.
One
On
week.
Dina's part, sure.
It's just a horseback riding full of gay girls, apparently.
Apparently. Oh, yeah. I did the part 2 when Ellie and Dina are just like, hey, we got to figure out what's going on and then we'll go back to camp. We're not going to go back to camp and report every little thing. We're out here to figure stuff out. They track down the bear, which I thought was a nice change in the game. I think it's a moose or a deer. I think it intensifies the fear factor there a little bit. And then I also liked that Ellie says to Dina, would you rather have the men handle it? And I thought that was more, at least my interpretation about it, was probably more about age and authority rather than gender. Asking like, do you want the adults to handle this or do you and I want to go and do this? And then I'm sure there's a bajillion Easter eggs that I missed, but I really did how they incorporated the usage of the glass bottle, which as you're playing the game, you use that a ton. And then also the employee of the month, the little white dog, like that was from the game as well. So I thought that was a nice touch that they threw that in the show.
Like, you throw these little things in there that only the gamers would know and were picking up on it. Other people would be like, that's cute. That's cool. They threw a bottle down the hallway. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, I think too, you really get to see Dina and Ellie's relationship here, um, as they're communicating and prepping to take down these two infected. And like you were talking about earlier, I think it's definitely a pairing of type A and type B. Um, you see that display really well when they're about to go in, and then Dina's like, "Oh, there's two of them in there." It's not a 2-on-1 situation.
Um, and when they were standing in the hallway and she was doing all this hand movements, and she was like,
Yes.
"Yeah, go get him." But to me, it was their Brain and Bronze moment there.
No, totally. Yeah, you called it right there. I think they did change, maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought that they both in the game fell through the ceiling into that lower level. I remember.
I'm pretty sure, but that was a while ago. The last time I played it.
For sure. Yeah, it's been over a year for me too by this point. Like you said, there's a nice change, I thought, being introduced to the stalker version of the infected here earlier than we do in the game, just because, again, it's a whole other element of, okay, they're evolving. It's been some time since we have been in this universe. What has changed?
Mhm.
And nature always finds a way. It's always evolving. So I really liked that they were showing that to us as an audience right away.
Yeah, I'm also curious on why they showed it so early too. They showed us the OG infected in the first season, and then they brought this one out like almost first. Um,
Hmm.
I'm curious on the filmmaker's standpoint of, is this going to be something that happens to Jackson because of that
Oh,
tube that they saw? Where I went in there and all the cordyceps were in the vines. Or they're just showing us that they're evolving. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but
I don't think so. I definitely think we're going to see more of them. It's definitely something they would not just throw out in episode one and not revisit, I think, this season in some way, shape, or form. That's a good point. Yeah, I think a good turning point, though, too, for Ellie. It's 5 years later. She's used to being the hunter. She hasn't been in a situation where she's the hunted for quite some time. And that definitely throws her off. She gets bitten, still gets out of the situation, obviously. But I think that's a good tone as well for, again, there's some complacency happening, I think, with everyone living in Jackson. And you can't get complacent when you're living in the apocalypse. Which we can jump back to Joel. We see that he's a proud and happy uncle. Um, which you and I were like, hey, are we gonna see like a Tommy Jr.? So
yep.
that was cool.
Right. I forgot that she was pregnant in the first season. So, and
He's 5.
I knew he had a nephew because of her being pregnant last season, but I guess that really flew across my head right then and there. But showing him being an uncle shows how he was raising his daughter. So he is internally a good father figure, which is
Yes.
probably why they showed that, since they're having Ellie and Joel issues.
Yeah. I think that's a great point because we see Joel and how well he is in the father figure role, whether that's with Dina or Ellie or um, in an uncle role with Tommy's kid. And it's also interesting to me that Jackson's expanding a lot. They can't keep up with housing needs as they're intaking more people, which again, I think it speaks to the fact that Jackson is thriving. It's doing really well. But as it's expanding, it is potentially testing the possibilities of its success. And we see that, like you're mentioning, with the quadriceps in the piping that they're breaking up. And I'm guessing in episode 2, we're going to have a bajillion infected swarming Jackson, which I'm sure will be a big pivotal episode in this season for sure.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that was a very good way to end the episode too.
Yeah.
And the more that, just from all the apocalypse and zombie movies I've watched in my lifetime, the bigger the colony that you have, the more chaotic it's going to be when something does happen. So excited to see.
What that looks like. No, it's a great point. It's so true. Like the larger the success story that's been in place, like
Where the
catastrophe.
downfall is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I almost forgot. I wanted to bring up and get your thoughts on Joel going to therapy.
That's a really new path that the filmmakers decided to do. First of all, I love Catherine O'Hara from other things. I think she was a great person to pick.
Oh yeah,
I think having Joel go to therapy is good for his character to evolve as well. He's trying to become better, learn how he can mend the relationship with Ellie, share his feelings, which for a fact he's not good at.
obviously, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of baggage that he's carrying around. And in the game, you don't really get to see him explain that. So I think it was a different route, and I'm glad they did it, especially knowing that he killed the therapist's husband. And he still pays in his old smuggling ways.
That's a great point, Paige. I really did enjoy that little detail there. And yeah, I really enjoyed Gail, played by Catherine O'Hara. Um, I felt like she instantaneously brought a really nice depth and presence to that whole scene. Again, like you said, differentiating there for sure from the game, but again, in a different version of that story, a different Joel. I really love that we're getting to explore this aspect of this character. For I just felt like watching this, I was like, wow, this is two like stars just like facing off in this scene. And I'm just like enjoying the heck out of it. Because it was super strong acting. I guess as someone that does go to counseling personally, I have been in Joel's shoes sometimes where I'm sitting there and I want that individual to agree and acknowledge what I'm
Validate.
sharing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm bullshitting a little bit here. I'm not sharing really maybe the true aspect of the heart of the matter. Instantly saw Joel doing that here, and his therapist, as I'm sure most therapists do, sees right through that BS. And so she's really trying to help Joel get to the heart of the matter. I really enjoyed Pedro's scene here where the character of Gail, played by Catherine O'Hara, did you hurt her? And Joel says, no, I saved her. But you just see the tears like he's holding back, and then the one sliding down. And even in that moment, like you just see all the pain on his face. This guy deserves an Emmy. It was just such a powerful emotional beat right there. I wasn't really expecting.
In fact, that during the therapy session, he didn't say a whole lot, like at all. I mean,
Yeah.
he was just like, you could see it in his face. And the fact that he feels terrible that he did wrong for saving her to the point where it makes him have to go to therapy is sad. And he really portrayed that emotion so well in that close up. It was like a medium close up of just his face. He was looking down and then he just looked up ever so slightly. And I could just feel it. I thought that was wonderful.
No, totally agree. Awesome scene stealer for sure. I did want to ask you, so just to clarify, so you were thinking that he's having some trauma from rescuing Ellie and the way he had to do that? Or are you thinking more that he's coming to therapy to try and work on himself more so from trying to figure out what he's doing to impact he and Ellie's relationship, or is it both?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I know he's killed people in his past and all this stuff, but what he did to save Ellie is probably the main cause of why he's gone to therapy. And even Ellie knows that. Ellie didn't want him to save her at all. You know that. But I think just all of what he had to do to save her is like just built up and he just needs to let it out. But it's a little bit
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So much.
No, I appreciate like what we're doing here because I had not thought of that aspect of it. I was more centered on, okay, like he's not acknowledging that it's his lie over the past 5 years that has caused this big rift. And that's the main thing he's upset about. But like you're sharing, he did a lot of terrible things in the process of saving Ellie and also has to live with the fact that his actions had consequences in a lot of different ways. So yeah, no, you're spot on. Which kind of on that note too, rewatching The Last of Us season one, it's the great debate was Joel in the right to make the decision that he made and the season finale. And since we've covered the last season, I've become a father and I feel very strongly that he made the right decision there. Like it isn't a question in my mind where before it was something where I was like, oh man, gotta sit down, gotta think about this. It isn't even something that I just as Joel does in the show and in the game, I wouldn't even second guess the decision to do exactly what he did. Um, which I think is just one of those things where, at least for me, it's been interesting just to be a part and enjoy the story for so long, but then also personally evolve in my personal life and then have different opinions or different feelings about some of the decisions made by characters in the story.
I'm guessing a lot of people have probably thought about that. They're like, you just met her. Why would you do that? And then, just like you said, you became a dad and you went on this journey with this little girl. Obviously, I think anyone would too. If you have that instinct, he was in the military too. He has that
Mhm.
that he needs to save and do the best he can in that moment. And it just shows his personality and his fatherhood that he wants to bring to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after losing Sarah in episode one. He wasn't able to save his daughter there. On like the subject of Joel, it's a small moment, but I thought it was a very important moment that I wanted to bring up. Joel is sharing in the last episode of season one how he wants to teach Ellie how to play guitar. Um, fast forward 5 years, Ellie has his guitar, but she hasn't taken care of it. It's a detail that is a quick detail, but it's one that visibly hurts Joel in that scene when he comes into the garage in her room and he sees the guitar laying there on top of the
Kind
junk, which I think really is a great symbol for where their relationship is at in this episode.
It's like the guitar is the relationship. It's just set to the side. It's dirty. It's laying down. It's not being worked on. But
Yes.
he's grabbing the guitar and he wants to fix it. So it's like the guitar is their relationship and he's going to do what he can to restring it back.
Yes. Um, and then I guess jumping into, I think my favorite scene of the episode, but also one of my favorite scenes of game two, the New Year's.
With the lights with the
Yes.
her head. Okay.
That whole celebration was basically like a shot for shot recreation of the game, which I loved because it's one of my favorite scenes that stick out to me from the second game.
very memorable scene. And if anyone showed you an image of it, people would be like,
Mhm.
that's The Last of Us. Exactly.
I don't know if it was IGN. Someone on X had drawn them up side by side, and it really was shot for shot, like 90% the exact um, scene. Which, again, not to harp on it constantly, but as you just said, it is for me like a staple sequence of events and scenes in the video game. And I was like hoping that they nail this because there's so many emotional beats that occur, but also it's a really beautiful scene. Here we see Ellie watching Dina dancing, is in the middle of this party. And I think we also get a glimpse into maybe some of the elements about why more Ellie is attracted to and loves her friend that is more of a romantic interest um, for Ellie, at least at this time. And I think we get a really nice glimpse into her just watching Dina be Dina,
Mhm.
um, and what she adds to Ellie's life in this chapter of her life. And then, of course, we have Jesse come over, have that whole exchange where Ellie's, oh, you guys will be back together in 2 weeks. And he's, nah, not going to happen, or whatever.
A little nudge. Got
Yes.
it.
Dina comes over. Oh, finally you showed up. And then places Ellie's hands and they're dancing. And Ellie's nervous. Dina's very relaxed. And I think she also has a way of putting Ellie more at ease, though, in the scene, because Dina's joking around, like, oh, how do I smell? And then Ellie's, oh, like hot garbage or whatever she says. And then, of course, she's rubbing herself all over Ellie, her sweat, everything. She's been dancing hard. And I really think it's one of the most beautiful parts of The Last of Us game. I feel like the actress Isabella Merced, I think, like she understood the assignment, man. Like she did so good because it's talking about, oh, like everyone in here is looking at you, and Dina's like, no, maybe they're looking at you, and I was like, why are they looking at me? I'm not a threat. And then of course we see that Dina knows how Ellie feels. What she says is, oh, Ellie, I think they should be terrified of you.
That's right. Yep.
I think the delivery was perfect. And then kisses her. And again, I think that's just one of the most beautiful parts of the story for me.
It was definitely a very intimate, personal moment for
Yeah.
the crowd. Very cute interaction. Me and Caleb both smiled. We were like, "There we go." It was, it was good. It was heartwarming, and it also showed the controversy of it inside of Jackson too. Which
Yes.
also is just like controversy out in the world now. Who
Yeah.
cared? People say some dumb shit, and Joel just swept in and did what he does best, a little aggression. He probably didn't mean it as much as he did, but pushed that evil old man over.
Yes. Because in the video game, Joel knocks the guy, but doesn't get him out. In this version, Joel just comes in and just knocks him straight to the ground.
And I know that Ellie and Joel are having this issue between one another, but I just
Yes.
realized if it was my dad shoving this old man on the floor, I would be so embarrassed. I wouldn't even be mad. I know she was angry and no, but it was, oh, dad, why'd you do that? Type of thing. That's how I gathered it.
Yeah. It's saddening because tying back to what we were talking about earlier, Joel doesn't necessarily enjoy violence, but he uses it when it's necessary. And his reaction to conflict in this episode is violent yet protective, which I think is also reflecting some of his internal struggles a bit. Because he asks, are you okay post violence? And Ellie says, "I don't need your fucking help." And just the look on Joel's face is just so like heartbreaking.
And in the way he answered was, okay, and just walked away. You could see the hurt in him, see the anger in her eyes. When she's walking back to the grass,
Yes.
you see him underneath the porch light playing the guitar that he fixed her, and she just kept on walking.
Yes, and I think Joel was almost expecting a return to old dynamic between he and Ellie, I think, in that moment in the New Year's celebration. But that isn't the relationship that they have anymore. And like you said, that even is reaffirmed in that scene where Joel's strumming a guitar outside and Ellie just keeps on walking.
Yeah, there was definitely you get a nice little high and then just shot down pretty slowly.
Yes. Which I think is a reflection of real life too. You have truly beautiful moments um, that many times then are disrupted or scarred with negative ones. That's what I really appreciate about The Last of Us as a whole. It's very character driven. It's a very human story.
You just get to see two sides of the same story
Yeah,
from different perspectives.
totally. And expounding upon that, then we flash to Abby and her crew.
And the fact that she was so persistent in 5 years to find this man just shows to the viewers that something's going to happen.
Abby has been entirely driven by revenge for 5 years, and she's finally found Jackson. Yeah, I felt like the episode left off, and I wanted so much more, of course, of the story, but it left off on such a great point because we have the Abby aspect, and then we also have the infected coming.
You have two outsiders in the same episode coming in, which is what you just said, but just hit you right there, the end of the episode. Which is going to happen first? What is the next episode going to be? They didn't really give us a much hint on that besides her looking down at the lights and the cordyceps are starting to come through the pipe.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I definitely think Jackson's going to get attacked by an infected horde, and Abby's group is going to be arriving in some form or fashion in Jackson. I'm sure episode 2 is going to be very pivotal to the rest of this season. It's a shorter season. I think it's only like 7 episodes.
And
but still.
And I'm just curious on how this season is really going to actually play out because certain things I would assume would have happened later, but I feel like things are starting to flow and what I expected was going to happen later could be happening sooner with Jackson and all of the characters around.
Totally. I think we're definitely going to get more backstory on Catherine O'Hara's character's husband and what exactly happened with him. If I had to guess, I think they'll do some kind of flashback scene with Joel and Ellie, and maybe they'll incorporate that somehow with Catherine O'Hara's character's husband's death. But I definitely think that'll be popping up. Maybe not in the second episode, but maybe in episode 3, just kind of get some more context about what's been happening in the last few years to Ellie and Joel.
Absolutely. I know we are probably wrapping up and whatnot. There is a controversial thing, but for some reason, when I was watching this episode, I was irritated with Bella Ramsey's portrayal of older Ellie. There was something in me that was just itching the wrong way. I personally think she did a phenomenal job in season 1. She portrayed her perfectly, facial expressions, mannerisms, all of that. But when I was watching the first episode, I'm like, that was not close whatsoever. Like her emotions when she's
Mm.
harping, trying to act really tough. I'm not really getting that. I feel like it's more acting than it is natural to be Ellie's character. I don't know
Okay.
if you see this at all or understand what I'm trying to say, but
I think so.
she has a lot to develop in the whole season. And I hope she can betray older Ellie better, in my point of view. I can't put my finger on it, but it just didn't seem right.
I don't
Well,
think you're alone in that, though. I was even talking to my mom who hasn't played the games and who doesn't know the story. And she was kind of even, oh man, I feel like Ellie hasn't really grown like emotionally since we last saw her. And I was like, okay, I can see that maybe. But I would agree with you too. Like in the second game, Ellie seems a lot more like rough and tough almost on the outside. I don't think we get that as much here in this second season so far.
it could change. Maybe my point of view will switch it, but yeah, I was just watching the first episode. I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. She's not doing
Yeah.
good of a job as I thought she would be doing.
Okay.
I did enjoy it when they were in the supermarket and they were messing around, but I think that's what kind of bothered me a little bit. It was more of a childish act when she was
Mm.
14 than being the Ellie that we know in game two.
I am interested to see like how her character evolves in this season though, for sure, because there are a lot of heavy beats that her character's going to go through. So I'm curious if maybe they're potentially teeing it up so that she has to go through this big swing to mature very quickly through some of the things that she's experiencing. But I think that's a fair criticism, honestly.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be a little harsh on that.
No, I think it's good. Can't have rose colored glasses on the whole time. Yeah, with that being said, like, really appreciate your time, Paige. This has been a lot of fun. Honestly, I cannot wait for episode 2 to come out next week. And I feel like I got a lot of good insight on a few things that I completely missed, or maybe I didn't understand myself just by talking with you. So that alone was awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, I really, from a cinematic standpoint, or just talking with a buddy, but it's fun to talk to someone about this, especially people that have
Yes.
the game, just to get different perspectives. And I really enjoy it. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, appreciate you. With that, we will catch you all next week. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Cinema Club. If you would be interested in coming on the show in the future, please email us at thecinemaclubtcc@gmail.com. Also, if you have not yet already done so, I would encourage you to join the Cinema Club Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/the Cinema Club TCC, where we share what television series or films will be featured in upcoming episodes on the show. I'm sure you are listening to this episode on your preferred streaming platform, but I wanted to make you aware that you do have options. The Cinema Club is available on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and now YouTube as well at the Cinema Club Podcast. Please also consider giving the show a review on iTunes, as it does really help the show. And finally, we are completely supported by listeners like you. If you love the show, please consider visiting our website and clicking the Support This Podcast button. You can check that out at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/the Cinema Club. Your contribution of even 99 cents a month goes directly to maintaining and growing the Cinema Club podcast. Thank you so much to those of you who already financially do support the Cinema Club, and we will catch you on the next one.